Good evening. Today is the 7th day of August, 2023, and I'm so glad that you're with us this evening. We've got a really big show. We're going to be talking about the film that is scaring conservative suburbanites all over the country. And mainly, though, we're here tonight to talk with the newly elected president of Young Democrats of Oklahoma. I'm awfully happy that you're here because we have a great show on tonight's Hamilton Report. It's always a pleasure to know that we've got folks that watch this broadcast from many parts of the country and from several continents. And so I'm really grateful for all of the folks who tune in to this broadcast weekly. And for those of us in Oklahoma, at least today, we had a bit of respite from the extraordinary heat that we've all been suffering from. So I hope that you were able to take a breath today and just enjoy yourselves a bit. Well, I'm sure by now you've heard of this film called Sound of Freedom. It's well, I'll tell you what. Let's just take a look at part of the trailer, and then we'll talk about it.
How'd that make you feel? Giving a child his freedom.
Felt good.
You have been at this for 12 years.
My country, 'tis of thee.
Why are you doing it?
Because God's children are not for sale. It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen.
For Homeland Security, we can't go off rescuing Honduran kids in Colombia.
And it goes on from there. What's interesting about this is it's a propaganda piece released in legitimate movie theaters around the country, but it was created to design to scare suburbanites to the polls. In other words, your children are the ones that are being sex trafficked around the world. Now, that's a stretch, to put it mildly. But the fact is, it's working because I've read letters to the editor. I've read many pieces online where these parents are absolutely terrified, and they believe it's all the product of the Democratic Party. That's a horrible shame, and it's a horrible way of doing business when you have to literally scare people to the polls. But here's something that will scare you even more than this movie. The man who led the fundraising effort and put a great deal of money into this film, his name is Fabian Marta. I want you to take a look at this man, because not only did he invest very heavily in this movie with his own money and getting money from other people, but what's the most interesting thing of all is he was recently arrested for kidnapping for the purposes of having sex with a minor. So that should be terrifying. The fact that he spent all this money to scare suburban folks, and find now that he's been arrested for the very same thing that this movie warned them against. You can't make this up. And I had to share that with you because it's just another example of the way that Democrats, we are trying to inspire people to the polls, showing the great work of the Biden administration. We don't have to scare people to the polls. And frankly, when that does happen, the results are never very good. Look what we're dealing with now in the governor's mansion and the Department of Education. People were scared of some, quote, woke boogeyman that they created out of whole cloth they were scared, so they went with the conservative people, and I'm using that term very, very loosely. Um, More like Christian nationalists, if you want to know the truth. But that's what happens when folks get afraid. They don't know what's best. And instead of looking and understanding what's best for them, they vote against their own best interests and the interests of their children. So that's just a warning that we all have to be vigilant, and we have to keep our eyes open, and we have to call BS when it's BS. I don't care if it's an elected official or the principal of a school or the superintendent of public instruction. We have to call them out when they do wrong. And I'm calling the group of people who put that money together and produced that motion picture, I'm calling BS on them. On a much, much lighter note, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to welcome a first-time guest to the Hamilton Report, but she is by no means a stranger to work within the Democratic Party and for the Democratic Party, particularly when it comes to young people. It's a great pleasure that I have of presenting JeKia Harrison, the newly elected president of YDO. JeKia, good evening and welcome to the Hamilton Report.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me, Scott.
Well, let's start with tell us about your officers first. I know that you're the newly elected president, but you're not the only officer and you're not the only one doing the hard work.
Right. So, of course, this takes a team, and I am super excited to have this team with me. Um, it took us a few months to actually build this out and get these folks together, and so a lot of thought was put into it. Hi, Dan. The executive vice president is Henry Biebelheimer, and Henry is in Wagner, Oklahoma. And so he brings us a wealth of knowledge as far as being a former educator. He now works for the city of Broken Arrow as a city planner. And so he has a wealth of knowledge about what it looks like in rural Oklahoma, but also brings to us the table about education and some other things. We have Nicole Maldonado, and she is our vice president of membership. So she's going to round up all of those young people out there and get us excited and involved, and making sure that we're not leaving any rock unturned when it comes to getting young folks involved in Young Democrats of Oklahoma. Isabella Rodriguez is our secretary. And so any comms work that you see coming out or anything like that is from her. But she's also going to be doing a lot of work on making sure our website, once we get it up and running, is going to be up to date and gives all that information that we need out there. We also have our 2 national committee representatives, so you won't see much of them. They'll still be around. Believe me, they've been around and been doing some traveling with me as well. But Dakota Christian and Mac McCleary, they have some things that they have to do on a national level to represent the Young Democrats of Oklahoma. And so that's super important because we want to make sure that we're bringing those dollars in. That's going to be helpful to us there, and also to get some visibility to make sure that people know that although Oklahoma is a red state, we still have some viable seats out there for us to fight for.
Absolutely, we do.
So we're going to get that attention. We're working hard on it. They made some really good connections when we went to Las Vegas this summer. So we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But and then last we have Tevin McDaniel. Tevin is I have 2 more that I need to introduce. So Tevin McDaniel is our chair of chapter president. So he keeps all of our chapters in line, making sure they have everything that they need. And then, of course, how could I forget our treasurer, Lauren Linus? She is making sure that we raise all of the dollars to make sure we have what we need to be successful. We know that when it comes to this party and when it comes to doing the work of educating and advocating and getting people out to the polls, that it's going to take us a few dollars to get there. And so she is keeping me right on track for dialing for dollars and making sure that we're doing our part in getting that information out there to folks that we need the money just like everybody else does.
Well, Dan took the words right out of my mouth. You have a dream team.
I definitely do.
I mean, wow, what it's a beautiful mix of people, and backgrounds and interests and abilities. And that creates some strong leadership. And I'm so happy to see this, because one of the questions that I hear over and over and over, and Alicia Kelly Sullivan says here, yes, we need to fire up the young to vote.
Mhm.
And that's what people tell me. How do we reach the young people? Well, we know that 84% of young people 18 to 35 have a negative view of the Republican Party and Republican candidates. That's a great thing.
Mhm.
However, unless we turn those percentages into numbers of voters, we're still missing a great opportunity. So that leads me to ask you. Oh, before I do this, I just have to say this. Jana Lewis Harkins is obviously a fan of yours. She says that you are one of our bright and shining stars, and I'm a fan of Jana Lewis Harkins, and she's been traveling so much this summer. It's wonderful to see you back in the audience tonight, Jana. So I just wanted to give Jana a shout out.
She deserves all the flowers. I try to make sure that I give them as much as I possibly can, because she is one of those people that has pushed me to maintain in this party and making sure that I stay in this fight. And so I completely adore Miss Jana, and I'm so grateful that she hasn't gone anywhere, although she's kind of taken herself out of some of these leadership roles now. We definitely hear her and see her often.
And that's I think that's a critical part of where I was going with engaging young voters,
Mhm.
because as people who have volunteered or worked for the party or have committed themselves to democratic policies and politics, as we grow older, we can't. We would be doing a big disservice if we just walked away instead of gracing the next people to come behind us with our knowledge, our experience, what's worked, what hasn't worked.
Mhm.
And so I'm grateful that you're getting that from party leadership. And I need to say this, that our chair, Alicia Andrews, has been steadfast from the very first time she was elected to include young people in the dialogue, and to really take to heart the concerns, the dreams of young people in Oklahoma, because you and I both know, JeKia, it is awfully easy for someone to graduate from school and say, I'm out of here. I'm
It
out of
is.
here. It's too red. It's too conservative. It's too backwoods. And I need to go and be able to breathe every day. So that's why I think YDO is such an important group.
Mhm.
You are a distinct part of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, and you have an opportunity to speak to folks that, frankly, I never could, because those are not, by and large, the people who tune into my broadcast or subscribe to our emails. And you have a chance to do that,
Yeah.
especially since you're getting some good guidance from folks who have been doing this for a while, and not just not in a bossy way either. I've seen some of the way that people are helping to mentor our young folks, and it really is a mentorship, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that big elephant in the room. How do we talk to young people about politics? And more importantly, how do we engage them with voting and then get them to turn out to vote?
Sure. So we have been looking at this from a different approach. It is one thing to have the ideals of the Democratic Party itself and what we align with, but also having an understanding that there are going to be issues that are going to be specific to young people that they
Absolutely.
care about. And so that is an approach that we have taken in this term, is to create a survey, which we did. That was one of our first 30-day goals, was to create a survey and put that survey out there to young people across the state for them to engage with us and tell us what those 4 issues are. And so we did that. And so now we have a platform that we are going to be utilizing. So it's a 4-issue platform, one of them being 2S LGBTQIA plus issues, education, reproductive rights, and criminal justice reform. So,
All
um,
very powerful.
exactly. And those aren't the things that I would have guessed that they wanted to see, right? That's not something that I would have guessed the young folks, especially the criminal justice reform portion right now. Yes, 2020 was a huge impact on criminal justice reform issues, but now that we are outside of that time frame, it seemed like there was something that was going on a back burner, and we were seeing other issues coming to the forefront.
Mhm.
But it seems like that's still something that young people really care about. And so, because of that, we're going to put that into that top four. But as we use those issues and continue to move forward with this platform, what we're going to do is create a space for us to educate each other. Young people are not a monolith. We cannot, just like I talk about this with Black and Brown issues, it's the same way with young people. We do
Mhm.
not all think the same. And Young Democrats of Oklahoma, it ranges from ages 13 to 40. That is a humongous range of folks.
It
We're talking
is.
about millennials and Gen Z all in one pot. That is three generations of folks sitting there together trying to figure out what are the things that we really care about and how can we be able to advocate for ourselves. And so I don't want to think that I, as a millennial, can speak for Gen Z. I can't. And so, what we're trying to do is create a space that is inclusive, that really embodies that big tent, but also allows for us to push the issue forward because we do know that that's important. And
It's very important,
yeah,
and I'm actually a little surprised too at what you found from your survey, because nationally, the number one thing of young Democrats, the number one concern is the climate,
yeah,
and
well,
that
yeah,
that's consistent. I mean, just so many surveys have pointed to that,
yeah.
and this summer I think has really brought it to the forefront.
It has. I
But
don't
what?
think it's not an issue because there are some folks that I've had some conversations about that
Mhm.
with. But I think here in Oklahoma, we also are a part of the industry of oil and gas. We know what it looks like here in this state. If you really understand how much of an impact oil and gas has on our economy, that we're a little bit more moderate in our thinking of climate. But we
That's a good
do see
point.
that climate change is an issue. It's not that we don't think it's an issue. It's just that we know that it's what helps feed our families and clothe us and, do all of the things. It's how we take care of ourselves and our state, to be frank
Sure.
about it. So,
Well,
yeah.
two of the top four I thought were particularly interesting. One, criminal justice reform, because that's very exciting to me that young people are so concerned about that, and
Mhm.
the other is LGBTQ issues, because I mean statistically we have 386,500 and change LGBTQ folks in the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly
Small percentage
not.
that we care
It
about.
is a small percent,
Yeah. And
and
when you
but
think
what's
about it.
what's fascinating is that young Democrats are seeing what's happening to their friends, to their loved ones, and they're saying, "Hey, we've got to address this." The same thing with criminal justice reform.
Mhm.
My guess is that many of the people that filled out your survey have never encountered problems with law enforcement, but they have friends and family that have. And
Mhm.
so I love the fact that they're thinking not just of themselves and their own future, but about the concerns of others around them. And I take that as a great sign, Jakia.
I do too. I think one of the things that I take from the 2S LGBTQIA plus community issue that we're seeing here is that, like you said, we care about our friends and neighbors, you know, and the other side of it is that this is in my opinion, and this is how I've been seeing it, as somebody that has been learning to be a better ally, that this is a human rights issue. I cannot take away the rights of a human being and feel good at the end of the day. And so, if I don't stand up and advocate for those issues, that's going to be a problem for me. That's my conscience. So, I think that's something that we're seeing with young people. But also with the criminal justice reform part, I think it's really important that we look at the numbers here in Oklahoma, the number of prisons and I mean, if you can have a scale, a number one, you can be number one in incarceration on a worldwide level. That is insane when a state of 4 million people can compete in that for a worldwide statistic. That is,
Yes.
I am
That,
appalled.
that should be
Um,
horrifying to everybody that lives here, because it's
exactly.
certainly horrifying to people who don't live here.
Exactly.
And
And you would think that they would see that this is an issue that people care about. When we passed 780 and 781, those state questions were supposed to be the catalyst to criminal justice reform in this state. And to see it go underfunded and actually not funded at
unfunded,
all
yeah.
is a horrible thing to see, because what is being told to Oklahomans is you didn't know what you were voting for.
Yeah, as if Oklahomans are so stupid that they can't read a question.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we get that kind of pushback all the time from Republican legislators, and that's why they're making it harder and harder to do direct democracy.
Exactly.
And
Those
that's
state questions are important. We've done some good work through the state question process, and
we
that's
have
where we've seen a lot of young people get active. The activism portion of what happens in the political sphere is what has engaged young people so much in Oklahoma. And I
Mhm.
think if we take that process away, we're going to be limiting the voices of young people, because that is how we've been able to make connections.
And
People
I don't think
understand.
that they're going to stand for that.
Oh
I really don't think so.
yeah.
Alicia points this out. The amount of folks we put in prison clearly points to dollars,
Mhm.
and there is no question about that. Jana follows it up by saying too many folks making money keeping the masses on paper or locked up. That's true too.
Exactly.
And one of the reasons that I'm so excited about education being on your top list is because prisons are planned
Based on
by
education.
looking at third grade test results.
Mhm.
They,
Yeah.
they project from the third grade to age 18, just jump third grade to age 18. And they know that in that many years, they're going to have to accommodate that many people in the prison system.
Yes.
That's, I mean, you talk about capitalism at work. Well, it is. I mean, and if you take an inept school um, superintendent of public, and I'm stressing public instruction, not Catholic private school instruction,
Mhm.
but that's what happens is you wind up with an undereducated population, and they either become uneducated voters or we've already made accommodations for them to go to jail.
Exactly. And
And
it's really sad when you're looking at the statistics when it comes to BIPOC. I mean, the number of Black and
uh,
Indigenous, yeah,
actually, spell that out
yeah,
for older folks.
Black, Indigenous, or people of color. And so when you look at that, statistically, we are talking about the number of people of color that are in the prison system, and that is insane in itself. We want to sit here and think that this isn't a driven um, process to see our public schools go into a downward spiral, but you're talking about those people of color that are being educated in those
Yep.
systems. You're targeting Tulsa public schools and Oklahoma City public schools and looking at them and saying, well, this is where our major minority groups are. So if we can weed them out to the other side of it, we'll have a consistent pipeline for forever.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm not being alarmist here. I mean, I'm stating facts,
Mhm.
and you know those facts, and I think you make a great point, because unless or until something changes, the top four issues that young people in Oklahoma have told you are important to them, unless we really work hard and work together, those will be the same four issues that would come up 10 years from now, 20
Exactly.
years from now.
Exactly.
And we have an obligation. And I'm talking about the greater we, all of us, have to pay attention to young people. We've got to hear their concerns, because I'll be honest with you, my concern is, will I be able to collect Social Security when I retire? Because that's something that I'm butting up against now.
Mhm.
So that's my focus. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I can't stop caring about kids and their education. I
Right.
can't stop caring about, young parents who can't afford to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And so it starts to sound daunting.
It does. It does. And this is for me, and some of the conversations that I've been having with friends is, what does this look like for me to raise a family? Like that is it. It
Mhm.
is scarier now to have a conversation about what it looks like to raise a child here, because you don't know the circumstances in which you are going to be placing your child. I have had friends that have left this state because of planning a family. And so, if this is what they want to do, I am not the one to tell them no. I encourage them to stay. I encourage them that it will get better. I encourage them that we have a fight to win here. But also, I understand that if you're in the middle of a situation where you can have better pay, or when you can have the job of your dreams and not feel like you're being attacked for doing it in a specific way, or if those types of things are important. And so, what I mean, even if we're talking about our older folks here in the state of Oklahoma, we just got the survey that, or the polling back, that said that even retirees don't want to stay here. So if we're saying that young folks don't want to stay and retired folks don't want to stay, who are the people that are going to be in the state of Oklahoma? That's the question.
And the good news is, with you and your leadership and your organization, we have the chance to really make positive impacts on the lives of young people, and more importantly, on the young people yet to come. And that, I'll tell you something, that excites me. Real quick, sorry, question from Alicia. She said, do you have a TikTok? Tell us about your social media real
Of
quick.
course. So on Facebook, we are Young Democrats of Oklahoma. On Instagram, we are yd.oklahoma. And then you can actually, if you have something that is pressing and you need to find information from us, or anything, you want to build a chapter, any of those things, you can send us an email at youngdemsoklahoma@gmail.com. That's youngdemsoklahoma@gmail.com.
Well, this time has zipped past, and I've
Oh, it's okay.
really enjoyed it. And I'm going to ask you, because we need to hear from you. We need to know what events that you're planning so that we can be there to support. We need to know what issues you're raising money for, because I promise you, I'm not the only one that looks at YDO with a great deal of respect and admiration and appreciation, because without you all doing what you're doing, honestly, we wouldn't have a chance. So I am just here to lift you up, to thank you for what you're doing, and to welcome you into this new role of leadership. And I can say, because I know you, because we're friends, that YDO and the future of Oklahoma Democrats is really good because of your hands. So I
Thank you.
really appreciate all that you do. And I promise you, we're going to have you back real soon. Okay.
Oh, definitely. Please do. We've got so much more we'd like to share.
Absolutely. Thank you, JeKia.
Thank you.
Real quick, before I let you go, I mentioned that we've got a lot of programs, and we do. We are planning our statewide road trip to victory in September. A lot more details coming out about that, but it's going to be exciting. We'll be stopping in 14 towns across the state, and that's going to be exciting. But we have so many other things, like monthly training programs that we're ready to launch. But in order for us to do that and to effectively support Democrats who are running for office, we need your help. And I don't like asking for money every week, but unfortunately, that's the reality. For us to do all of the work that people recognize a need for in Oklahoma, and that includes on the ground community organizers, we just can't do it without your support. So even if you think it's a small amount, believe me, we are grateful for everything that we receive. every investment from every Democrat. And I'm thankful to say that we now have some Republicans who are also giving to us on a monthly basis because they recognize that in Oklahoma, ours is a tough job, but it's a job that we're doing to the very best of our ability. So I hope that you will take a moment sometime this week to go to okdemocrats.org, click on the donate button, and make your gift. And if at all possible, make a recurring monthly gift that helps us plan and effectively roll out the programs that Oklahomans need and deserve. Well, friends, I'm so thankful that you brought us into your home tonight. And I say that every week because I am humbled by this experience, and I appreciate you tuning in. It means the world to me to know that you're there and that you take what we talk about here and you share that with your family and friends, because all of us working together, we can finally achieve what we all hope for, which is a better Oklahoma for ourselves, our children, and generations to come. Thanks so much. I'll see you again next week at 6:30 for the Hamilton Report. Good night.